Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Training Industry Product Demo, Transform Organizational Performance with World-Class Learning, sponsored by Go1. I'm Elizabeth Parker, Marketing and Event Manager here at Training Industry. So happy you decided to join us for today's event. Before we get started, I do have just a few housekeeping items to review that will help you interact with our speakers and get the most out of your time with us. Throughout today's event, please feel free to chat your comments in the chat window, submit any questions you have for our speakers in the Q&A window. We'll be addressing those questions towards the end of the event during our Q&A session. I also encourage you to share the information you received today with your colleagues and network on social media. Please include that handle that you see on your screen, Go1COM, and the hashtag GIWebinars, so we're able to engage with you there and track your contribution to the conversation. When the program ends, you'll notice that a short evaluation survey has popped open in your browser, and we would greatly welcome your feedback about today's event. And as always, today's webinar will be recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com. You'll be receiving a follow-up email from us with a link to that recording that you can review again and share with your team. Now, I know several of you are new to Training Industry, so a special welcome goes out to you. Training Industry exists to support the learning leader. We offer timely and insightful information on the business of learning through live events like today's webinar, as well as through website, magazine articles, research reports, referral services, our podcast, that's just to name a few. You can find out all the ways that we connect you with expert perspectives in the industry at trainingindustry.com. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to your speakers for the day, Jake Villa and Erin Sheridan-Coons. Jake is a training consultant working with forward-thinking organizations to develop training programs that promote explosive growth for the company and its employees. Jake believes the line between playful and professional is not as big as typically believed, and through infectiously authentic training, he bridges learning gaps to bring people together. After working for nearly 2 decades in the nonprofit sector as a director and national trainer focused on diversity, empathy, equity, safety, and play, Jake joined Go1 to bring his unique experiences to the online learning space. And Erin has been in the e-learning world for nearly a decade and specializes in implementing software as a service learning technology for rapidly changing startup environments. She helps organizations develop strategies to increase employee engagement, efficiency, and retention. Erin's goal is to help foster a corporate culture that attracts and retains an organization's most valuable asset, its people. Erin began her journey in L&T with lynda.com and LinkedIn Learning and has been with Go1 for a year and a half. All right, Jake and Erin, I'm excited to have you with us today, and I'm going to hand it over to you at this point.
Thanks so much. We're really excited to be here. Before we get started, we really want to ask y'all a question, and that's really about, like, this year has been crazy. I think we all know that, right? Like, it's hit us all in all kinds of different ways. So my question to all of you, and we're going to have a poll question pop up here, is how long did it take you to find content to respond to COVID, to respond to remote working, to respond from home ergonomics, right? Everybody had to move into their home office chairs, like the one that I'm sitting in right now, super uncomfortable, was never intended to be my normal chair for 10 months. So when you think back about this past year and everything that's hit us from all kinds of directions, how long did it take you to find content that you could drop into your LMS to push out to your employees to help them deal with these new realities? Erin, I think we hear this from people all the time, right? Like, every time you're on a call, people are talking about how difficult it was to find something. It's kind of this school cafeteria idea, right? Like, the lunch lady serves you chicken nuggets and there's no other choices. This is what you get. Like, this is all we have. And so I'm just curious what everybody's responses have been. All right, so most of you said, the majority said it took 0 to 4 weeks to find and source content. About 38%, 1 to 3 months, and 15% said we're still trying to get a plan together. Some of us did a full shutdown, right? And we had to just cram to get stuff put together and rolled out to our people. So let me tell you a little bit about how Go1 Helps respond to that. So we started as an LMS about 6 years ago. And as we started rolling out this learning experience platform, we started to see that all of our different customers had all these different departments. And all these different departments were sourcing content from all kinds of different places. And we started to realize the real issue in the L&D world wasn't about having a good LXP or a good LMS. It was about finding and sourcing content and bringing everything together in one place. We started to learn from our customers that the IT department was sourcing content from somewhere else and it wasn't even hosted on the LMS. Or the operations department had some content that, that nobody even knows where they got it from or how they got it, right? But it was there. And then some of the content was in the LMS, some of it was in a different platform. And so we thought, how can we help this, right? What can we do to solve this kind of need? So my question to you is, how many content providers are you currently working with? Like just one, more than one? If you were to think about your organization, your departments, is everything coming through your L&D? Like, do you know how many online learning partners you're working with? Or are they kind of sourcing from everywhere? Erin, when you're talking to people, how many are they kind of typically dealing with before they start talking to you?
That is a great question. And I know it generally takes a learning audit throughout the enterprise to figure out which business units are leveraging which providers and what's going through the LMS and what's going rogue. I would say it varies depending on the size of the organization, but I would say at a minimum, there's 3. There's generally somebody for compliance, technical skills, and professional development. And then there's also an LMS provider. And then I've seen as many as 7 or 8. So it just really varies on size of the organization, how siloed they are, etc.
Yeah. And when we're talking to people too, we find out that like adding a new content provider isn't just like an overnight experience, right? Like it takes months sometimes to source the contracts, to go back and forth with the legal, maybe redlining things, and then to get it imported to your LMS or to get it brought somewhere else. So 5 or more of you are working, or sorry, 42% of you are working with 5 or more content providers. That's a lot to balance. It's a lot of contracts to maintain, right? A lot of expirations to deal with, a lot of knowing when your renewals are up and managing all that different content. One of the questions that we didn't ask, but I would be curious, and you should chat this in, is how many different platforms are you using with all these different providers? Like, do you have to go to that content provider to use their content, or can you always bring the content into your LMS? Chat those answers in. But Erin, why don't you tell us a little bit about how Go1 solves all of this?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jake. So Go1 clearly saw sort of a need in the marketplace, right? Managing multiple vendors can be messy and not to mention super expensive, right? So you're not really leveraging economies of scale when you're buying 20 licenses for your engineering team and 100 licenses for your admin team, et cetera. So what we decided to do is work with a variety of providers, bring their content into our library or our ecosystem, and package that up into one commercially viable subscription for every business unit within your organization. So essentially what we've got here is one platform with one source of content, but sourcing that content from about 130 providers globally. And then we can push that content into your learning management system, your LXP, or folks can use the Go1 platform to access all of this content right in one library. So essentially it's an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yeah, going back, Erin, to that school cafeteria example, right? Like usually if you're just sourcing content from one provider, like that lunch lady, this is what you get to eat today is mystery meat, right? And we're kind of more of the like Las Vegas Caesars buffet, right? Like you've got everything that you could ever possibly want.
Exactly. So what we're doing is we're satisfying for a variety of job roles and skills needs and skills gaps by bringing all these providers into one library, feeding that into the platforms that folks need to leverage to watch that content, but making it easy for you to manage one contract and also get the best price. So just a snapshot on some of our providers, and we bring in the world's top most recognized providers globally. You'll see these are all industry recognized experts in their particular areas of expertise. So we're not just allowing, like other aggregators, allowing people to submit content that they've created ad hoc. We're actually partnering professionally with these organizations to bring their libraries into ours. We add, geez, it varies, but we add a multitude of vendors every year. I'd say we add 1 to 2 content partners every month. So that's super exciting. We just added Blinkist, which I'm really excited about. We're bringing in Harvard Business Publishing, and we're at about 130 content providers or partners to date. So really robust library coming from a variety of experts. I know you guys have all heard of Skillsoft. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Treliant for compliance. They're a big player in that game. And there's many more within the library for you to experiment with.
I think one of my favorite things about the library, Erin, is that once you're a subscriber, anybody that we bring on, you automatically get access to. Like it's not an additional cost to access the Blinkist. It's there. It's just in the library. It just shows up, right? Like
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the library is constantly evolving, constantly growing. The breadth and depth is getting more and more amazing every month as we add folks. So it's a fantastic evergreen resource. So here we're showing sort of some of the job roles that we help support, or some of the business units that we help support. So, really common compliance. Everybody has that sort of HR compliance, harassment need they need to fulfill. Diversity, inclusion is super important now, but we go beyond just your required compliance, and we move into things that satisfy different job skills, like management development, moving individual contributors up the management chain into people managers, communication skills, general business skills, sales and customer service is huge, and even health and well-being. So really broad offering and something for everybody.
I'm curious, while we're talking about this, y'all should chat in what have been the biggest topics that you've been looking for this year? Like, was it diversity, equity, and inclusion? Was it COVID and hand washing? Was it mindfulness and helping people with stress and anxiety? Or was it like the more typical Excel leadership kinds of trainings? Slack in what you've been looking for this year, because I'm super curious.
Yeah, one thing I saw a lot was how to manage remote teams, how to work remotely, how to hold effective remote meetings. I think that was really big. Yep, leading and connecting virtually, Melissa says.
Yeah.
Spot on. So another beautiful thing about being a content aggregator is that we can push a variety of content formats out for your learners. And this is super important because everybody learns differently. So we've got a lot of micro learning for learning on the fly, long form classic video courses, lectures and talks, interactive files, which I really gravitate toward, where you're actually being quizzed and interacting with the content as you go. So really something for everybody in terms of the amount of time they have and their learning style. And speaking of time, I alluded to this, short format, micro learning, up to 15 minutes, longer, up to an hour long. And then we do have some courses in the technical arena that are hours long. So really something to suit everybody based on the amount of time they have in their day and what they're looking to do.
And I think to that point, like a lot of times when you partner directly with a single provider, you have a sexual harassment course and everybody has to take the same one. But with Go1, I think we have over 250 sexual harassment courses in our library. So you could pull in 3 or 4 to your LMS, or you could allow people to self-select, and everybody can find the course that meets their learning style, which I think is super unique, right?
Agreed. Great call out, Jake. So we understand that having 130 providers in a library, and I don't know, I think we're at 75,000 learning objects or courses in a library, that can be overwhelming, right? I've worked with Go1 for 1.5 years, and I don't know every course like the back of my hand or every provider like the back of my hand, but we've put together a lot of really cool ways to help you solve for this. So first and foremost, we do have canned curation, and we have a content team dedicated to creating learning playlists and pathways based on topic areas that we've found to be popular or relevant. And so we've created about 200 playlists that are available for our clients, and we'll dive into that a little bit in the demo in a minute. We also offer some custom curation services, which are super handy, and they don't cost our partners or our clients anymore. We give you a dedicated content specialist or client success manager like Jake to help you curate content to map to competencies or succession planning goals. So we can help you navigate our robust content hub and bring over the content that's most relevant for your learners. Okay, so now I think we're gonna hop into the demo segment, the most exciting part. So if I could share my screen, that would be amazing. Oh, I did forget one thing. So we did have one more slide, and it was, sorry, Elizabeth. Thank you. And it was just an easy way to think about Go1, right? Like what do we do and how do I simplify the argument for Go1? And I like to use the analogy of Spotify. So Spotify aggregates music from around the world and makes it readily available for their listeners for one flat subscription fee. We're doing the same thing, but we're doing it for e-learning. So we're bringing in all this wonderful learning from around the globe and serving that up for our learners for one flat fee. So super easy to think about it that way. And then we can integrate our content or our platform into yours. So if you've gotten a learning management system or an LXP, we can integrate with that and have our content surface there. And we can also push it into Microsoft Teams, which I'll also show you a little bit later.
And I think to that point, Julie asked a question about, are your anti-harassment modules pulled together for state-specific compliance? That's a really great question. So to reiterate, Go1 doesn't create content. We don't make anything. We're like Spotify, right? Spotify hosts music from artists all over the world. And so we host content and we aggregate content. We pull content together from providers all over the world. And all of our providers, for the most part, if they're doing harassment courses, they're going to have those state-specific course needs. So the ones that we've been really recommending a lot are from one of our providers called Treliant and another provider called Will Interactive. And they're great courses. They meet all of your needs that you need. But again, you have choices, right? And so there's all these options. Like maybe you don't like this one provider, or it's the one that you used last year. And so this year you want a different course. And we can do that. You have access to that, which Erin's going to show you now in kind of our demo here.
Yeah, I think the simple answer to that, Julie, is yes, we have compliance training that's compliant for each state and globally. Great question. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen and we'll get into the fun part, which is showing you our platform. So a little bit of sort of table setting here. I want to be clear on what I'm showing. So there are a few ways that you can view Go1 content, right? And we touched on that earlier. One is through your LXP or your learning management system. Another is through Microsoft Teams. And then another is leveraging our learning management system. I like to call it an LMS Lite. And that's what we're looking at today. So we're looking at our platform, and I'm going to show you just some of the content that we have, how to search for that content. We'll look through quickly through a course, an example of how everything plays through our one player, and then I'll show you some of our playlists. So what we're looking at here is our Explore page, and essentially it's just the interface or the entryway into our library. From anywhere in our platform, you can search by keyword, just like a Google search. So you could look up something as granular as a pivot table. You could look up harassment. You could look up something like new manager. But here you'll see some of the topics that we have. So broad offering, as we touched on earlier. And then our artificial intelligence is also pulling up stuff for me based on topics I've indicated interest in learning more about. So right off the bat, I'm being pushed to content's being surfaced to me that's relevant. But instead, I'm going to do a couple of queries and we'll do them together. And I have them pulled up in the interest of time. But I did want to showcase sort of ways to filter and then how much content we really have in a given area. So for this particular query, I pulled up Excel. So Microsoft Excel, really popular keyword search. And that pulls up about 3,400 results. So that's a lot of content, but that's good because there's going to be something that solves for every problem. Now I'm able to filter here so I can get a little bit more granular in terms of what areas I'd like to sort of hone in on. I can also indicate the duration. So if I'm looking for something shorter, I can certainly filter there. I'll do that just for fun.
Erin, I'm going to reiterate while you're doing this that all of these courses are included, right? Like this isn't you choose and you pay extra. Like this is all just part of it. Like you can use any of these courses. There's no additional cost for anything that Erin's showing you.
Absolutely. And then providers. So I'm going to just scroll through this list. This is just going to show you like how many providers have 15 to 30 minute long content within the Go1 ecosystem. And it's really a lot. So you're seeing all kinds of different providers to pull from. I'm not going to select anything here right now. Just a great way to show sort of what's going on within the library. And then over on the right, you can always filter by popular, what the newest additions are. We'll just select that for fun. And then we've got these additional filters here, which are great. So, hey, I'm looking for an interactive course. I really want to engage with my content. We already have Excel tagged. I'm going to leave that alone. And then at the bottom, there's a way to, oops, let's not do that, filter by language. So we do support about 16 languages in our library. We'll just hit apply. And then we've got an 85 result list. So that's a bit more manageable, right? That's easier to scroll through. Now, let's say I'm scrolling through, I'm trying to develop a playlist. I'm not exactly sure, what I want to watch, but I do want to make a list. So let's say, let's see, we'll go back up to the top. Excel and finance. Let's say I really want to bookmark this course for later. I can do that. And I can simply save it for later, or I can add it to an existing playlist. So here I've created my own Excel training playlist, or I could create a new one. I'm going to add this to Excel training. Oops. I think we just opened up that playlist instead of adding it, but that's okay.
And it's cool too, because as an administrator in the system, you can build playlists and share them with everybody so everybody can see the playlist. Or as a learner, you could build a playlist just for yourself. So like I use it when I'm searching through here to grab courses that maybe I don't want to jump into right now, but I want to save for later, right?
Exactly.
So there's a couple of different ways it can be used, which is nifty.
Exactly. Okay, so here I'm jumping into a second query. I'm showing harassment just because it's a topic that everybody needs. And I know Jake talked about this a little bit earlier, but there's something for every style of learner. Or if you need to deploy, say, a sexual harassment course every year, maybe you'll pick a different one for next year than you did for this year. So to keep it a little bit fresh. So over 457 results within harassment, and just a ton of providers that cover this area. And again, I can bookmark this, save it for later, or I could add it to my harassment playlist. The third query I've pulled up is leadership. We have a super robust offering when it comes to management skills and leadership. So everything from novice, new people managers, all the way up to C-level folks, we've really got content to support everybody. And then in a variety of formats yet again. So micro-learning, long form, interactive, etc. I'm gonna search for one since I do know this library pretty well. Let me pull up some of the micro-learn courses. Micro-learn is one of my favorite interactive providers. So we'll pull this up and then I'll show you how this plays within the Go1 player. So let's pull up flexible leadership. This is a great one. There'll be a little bit of sound that I will mute in a minute. So I'm going to walk you through the course just a little bit. This is a 15-minute module.
While this is loading, I think one of the more popular features is because you have such a wide, breadth and depth of a library, you as an administrator can actually pull together courses from different providers and put them all in a single course. So you could have a microlearn course to start your learning pathway, and then you could bring in your own documentation about leadership in your organization, and then you could grab a course from Skillsoft, and you can put them all together in a way that you can't do anywhere else.
Yep, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So if you notice, when I pulled this course up, it was resuming, it picked up right where I left off, which is really cool. So anytime somebody comes in to a course, maybe they're interrupted, maybe they don't have time to finish it, anytime they pop back into the course, we'll know where to plop them back in when they log back in, which is great. But I'm gonna hit play, I'm gonna let the sound play for just a minute, and then I'm gonna mute that and just show you through this interactive course to give you an idea of what it looks like. But I think the thing to note here is that everything plays within Go1. You're not directed to another platform or site. Everything lives here.
In today's fast-paced, globally diverse work environments, the key to organizational success is flexible leadership. In fact, research shows that as organizations undergo rapid shifts in personnel and direction, with employees' needs becoming more and more diverse, the future of work depends on today's leaders.
So this one starts with a video, super modern look and feel, a bit of an intro, and then you navigate through the course by actually interacting with the content. And as you move through, you'll be presented with some more reading. I've already taken these sections here, which is great. There will be a case study and then questions, which I will then submit for feedback. And it goes on and on, or not on and on, but it goes through this flow for a bit. And at the end, there'll be a sort of a knowledge check here at the end. So that's one type of course. That's an interactive file. I really love those because they keep me engaged. They keep me paying attention. I think that's super important when you're thinking about e-learning, especially because there's so many distractions. So again, I've decided, hey, I really like this course. I'm going to add this to my new leader track. And as I go through exploring content in leadership, I can do that. Like Jake said, build a playlist with a variety of providers and go from there. And then last but definitely not least, I did want to showcase just a little bit of our sort of technical coding content. We have a lot. So what I queried here was Python, pretty straightforward, one of the top coding languages, 1,600 results. The fantastic thing about some of our coding providers is that they actually have environments in which you will code within the course and practice what you're being taught. So one of those providers is called Practice Labs. They're new to the library and we're super excited about them. So that's one thing to note, that it's very hands-on.
Yeah, the Practice Labs one is really cool because it spins up a virtual server. So everything you do is like, it's not a fake environment, right? It's a real live environment that's specific to your learner, which is a really, really cool experience.
Absolutely. So I did want to touch on, the playlist and the curation piece. Again, lots of content. We've been working hard behind the scenes to create over 200 really awesome playlists for folks to piggyback on. So if you didn't quite know where you wanted to start with, say, communication skills or a well-being playlist, you could simply take one of our canned playlists and deploy those to your enterprise. Or you could take those suggestions and add to them or fine tune and do some curation on your own. So these are simply suggestions. And what I wanted to note is that we are pulling content from a variety of places, right? So I'm just gonna click on our diversity and inclusion playlist. This is one that's been getting a lot of attention. It's great. So we've got 10 resources within this learning path, over 3 hours of content. And as I scroll down, you'll be able to see the variety of titles, the durations of these courses, and then all the different providers within our library that are contributing to this playlist. So very diverse mix here.
think another cool thing about these playlists is that they're not static. So our content team is constantly wanting to encourage you to try out new providers, right? And so with over 130 providers, these playlists are periodically updated to highlight maybe some of our new providers, or maybe a provider that you've never heard of or tried before, but has really amazing content. And so this is kind of our way of always continuing to suggest maybe something new, something exciting, something different to keep things fresh.
Absolutely. And I think now would be kind of an interesting time as I scroll through this playlist. If anybody has heard of any of these providers, I'd love to hear in the chat. So if you're familiar with Skillsoft or Vado or IntelliZ, Mindscaling, Microlearn, Seaghost, let me know. I'd love to hear if any of these are folks that you've worked with before or have heard of. Okay, and last but not least, there's just one more way you can curate content, right? So you can create your own playlists as you navigate through and search and find courses you like. You can jump off of some of our canned curated playlists and leverage those to deploy to your constituents, or you can build courses this way. So I have a course builder here. I'm set up as an admin, and I've created all these really fantastic learning paths or courses for my teams. And we'll just click on one for fun. And so I've put together this award consisting of about 8 courses from different providers that folks can watch, and then I can simply assign these courses straight from this page. So just another way to curate. I like to leverage the playlist the most. I think that's our newest, sort of snazziest way of deploying content, but we do have a way to build courses here. And then a really cool thing is that you can add videos that you've created or documents that are internally facing to this curation platform and deploy sort of a mix of Go1 content and your own proprietary content. So yet another way to deploy content to your learners and hopefully surface the content that's relevant to them so that they are pointed in the right direction at all times.
Yeah. Julie asked, how do you get feedback on your content offerings? And I think, Julie, we'd like a little more clarification on what you're asking, but you know, we don't create content, we just pull in content from our content partners. And so we love feedback. We love to hear what courses you're liking, what courses you're not liking. We collect that information from our customers on a regular basis. And then we really encourage a level of learning at Go1. So all of us as employees are also actively taking courses from new providers. And so we kind of try to give internal feedback too. But if there's feedback that we need to pass on to our content providers, we do that pretty often as well. Hopefully that kind of answers that question.
Yeah, and another way that our learners can submit feedback is from this little Go1 bot down here. Every learner has access to our customer service team. So let's say a course isn't playing correctly, you need help finding something. You can always navigate here and ask a question. You can also submit feedback too.
Yep. And I think it's important to note that there is 24/7 chat support for administrators. So if me, your customer success manager, is unavailable and you have a technical question, you can just pop up that chat box and our folks are ready to help you.
Cool. So we've covered sort of a little bit about our portal and our library, the fact that we can integrate with your systems. Now, I think Jake is going to show, again, another way that you can learn within the flow of work via Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to stop sharing my portal and let Jake take it from here.
Great. So before I jump into the Teams part, I want to show you one additional kind of component. Are you seeing the Content Hub here, Erin?
I am. Perfect.
Right. Perfect. So while you can totally use our platform as your learning experience platform, we also know that around 80% of our customers in North America are using other platforms, other LMSs, and we have great relationships with those LMSs as well. A lot of LMSs, you'll buy the LMS, but maybe it doesn't come with content, so you need to go find your content elsewhere, which is typically the case. And so we want to help get all of our content into your LMS, and we do that a couple of ways. The easiest way, or the fastest way, is what we call our Content Hub. This is available for any of our administrators. You can come in here, you can select all of the content, and you could export it as a SCORM and then just import that into your LMS. That's probably the quickest way. We also have several native integrations built out with LMSs like SuccessFactors and Docebo that make it really simple to pull your content in with a native integration built out. You can also, search for leadership here and just pull in leadership courses, or if you wanted to search Excel, you can do all those same searches that Erin was showing earlier and just export the courses that you want to export and pull in. So you can kind of use this like your kitchen pantry, right? You go in here, you grab a can of corn, and then maybe you come back later, you grab some flour. This is your pantry. This is where all this lives. So we don't want you to have to use our learning platform if you don't want to. If you already have your own LMS built out, which if you're using an LMS right now, chat it in. We'd like to know who you're using because we'd like to focus on what integration we should build next. But this is a really great way to kind of pull your content out and bring it to wherever you need it to be. Another thing that we want to focus on is our Microsoft Teams integration. So this is really exciting. This is something we rolled out this year. You can install the Microsoft Teams bot. And if you're using Microsoft Teams, let us know in the chat. And really bring learning to exactly where people are. So if you're using Microsoft Teams as your organization, you know that everybody's here, everybody's chatting all the time. You can install the Go1 bot and you'll get this learning tab at the top of any channel that you would like it to be in. Inside this learning tab, you can build this out however you want it to look. And so here's an example of an emerging leaders program team that I built out. And I've got 4 different weeks here. And so, to use this, maybe we announced to our company, hey, we've got this new emerging leaders program. If you're interested, I'll add you to the Microsoft team. And then they come in here and they go to the learning tab and they can see what they need to start with and what they need to learn. And if I click on this, it's going to play right here inside of Microsoft Teams. So we're never going to get that, hey, what was my password? I forgot my URL again. What's the URL for that learning site? Everything's here and it's all trackable and reportable, just like if they took it on the Go1 platform. The other nice thing about this is that we know Microsoft Teams is all about collaboration and communication. And so I can have a conversation about this course. We can learn together in a way that I don't know anybody else that has this kind of feature or functionality, right? We know that Microsoft Teams is doing awesome things and bringing us closer together. And so it just makes sense to bring our online learning to this space. So this is a really cool integration that we built out. We're really excited about it. Some of the ways that we've seen organizations using this is kind of like this emerging leaders program or building out L&D competency tracks and really focusing on bringing people into where they are. You can start to have conversations from the post page and you can really start to discuss. You can also use this to bring in your own files, your own learning into Microsoft Teams to really start this collaborative communication, which is really exciting. So if you have any questions, let's see what the chat is saying right now. You use Teams, that's great, that's awesome. You use Microsoft Teams at Odyssey Gaming Services. This is super. So Joe just asked if there's a monetization feature for companies that put training content on your LMS. That is something that we can discuss. If you're producing world-class content, we'd love to talk to you about putting it on and helping you monetize it. So Teams, this is great. We'd love to help you get set up with the Microsoft Teams integration and get this rolled out. It's something that we can get spun up for you pretty quick if it's something that you're interested in. So we'd love to talk to you more about that. We're going to switch over to Q&A, so I'm going to stop sharing so we can pull that up. We got one last poll question here. So chat in if you'd like to learn more about everything, just more about our content library, what our providers are like. We'd love to show you more about the depth and breadth of that. If you want to see more about the reporting and admin tools, we'd love to show you more of that as well. We didn't touch on our reporting, but our reporting is pretty slick. With the click of a button, you can pull up a bar chart or a pie chart or a pivot table. It's really rad. Content integrations and APIs, whether or not you're pushing this to a different platform, or if you want to know more about the Microsoft integrations. So I briefly talked about Teams, but we also have integration with Microsoft Search. So if they go to your SharePoint site and you're connected to the Go1 library, and if they search Excel into your SharePoint search site, the Go1 learning will actually surface there. And so it's really about bringing learning exactly where people are, which is something we're really passionate about. So go ahead and take a second, answer the poll.
Looks like Julie asked about pricing. Does it go by an enterprise agreement or number of users? We're flexible. It's generally by number of users and volume based. But if you'd like to find out more, then definitely answer that poll question and we can schedule a quick conversation with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Jake and Erin. I'm going to leave this poll question up for just a few more minutes while we get started with Q&A so that we can have let the audience have more time to submit their response there. And just wanted to encourage everybody, if you have questions, pop open your Q&A panel and start asking those now there. I do have a couple questions in the queue for you now. Your first one is from Wanda, who wanted to know how your content is vetted, or how your partner is vetted.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a whole team of provider partner management team, and they really dive into content before we bring them on board. We know that the last thing that I want to deal with as a customer success manager is you coming back to me and saying, Jake, what is this content? Where did this come from? Like, can you give me something different? So we want to make sure that all the content we're adding to our library is truly world-class and is worthy of being assigned to your employees. Somebody asked, how would you describe the main differences between Go1 and your competitors' platforms? I think it's really about content aggregation, right? So it goes back to that elementary school lunch line versus the Las Vegas Caesars buffet. Like, you can have some of this, or you can have all of this. And generally, we can get you all of this for the same price that you would have paid for that single provider, or nearly there. I think that's the big difference between Go1 and anybody else. As far as I know, we're the only ones doing this.
Awesome, thanks, Jake. Here's a question from Steve, who wants to know, how do you track APIs and can you generate reports?
Yeah, so I touched on that briefly. Our report functionality is really slick. Like I said, with a couple of button clicks, you can filter by status. If I just want to see people who have completed courses, I can do that. From the report page, I can send everybody a notification who maybe has been assigned a course but hasn't started it. I can run reports on that and show them as bar charts or pie charts. I can export it as a pivot table into Excel really easily. I can create a savable link, a shareable link. So even if they're not administrators, I can send maybe all the department heads a link to the report so they can all just click a button and see the report themselves. All of our reports are dynamic. They're continuously updated. You don't need to refresh them. As soon as you go to that page, any new data is already there. So I think that's a little bit about the report functionality. Erin, did you have anything you wanted to add about that?
No, you've got it covered.
Huh. Keep slacking in, Slack. Keep chatting in those questions. Keep teamsing in those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep those questions coming. Here's one from Jen, who wants to know, what is your user adoption rate?
That's a good question. And I think it really depends on the organization. So we see all kinds of different numbers depending on how things are deployed, right? So I think folks that are doing really directed learning and kicking off deployment with a hands-on approach are going to see much more better user adoption and usage than folks who might just buy Go1, send a newsletter out, and then kind of set it and forget it. So we do offer resources that are complementary to help with that that great usage and adoption. We want to make sure that you maximize your return on your investment always, and that you're happy with the platform. So we come up with all kinds of ways to share our best practices with you, including contests and newsletters, etc. So we want to make sure that folks are able to get in there and leverage and feel comfortable with the platform. I would say on average over the years of working with content, I would say like a 60% of an enterprise for an enterprise-wide deployment would be like really awesome adoption. And so that's a nice benchmark in year one to kind of aim for.
Yeah. I think it's all about creating a culture of learning at your organization too, right? So many of us are coming from an org that only ever assigned harassment compliance courses. And now suddenly you have 75,000 courses that your people can take, everything from, like I said, mindfulness to upskilling themselves on Excel. And so continuously letting them know like, hey, this is here, this is available, this is your personal library. And then looking for ways to continue to build that culture of learning in your organization. Can you get an hour or 2 hours a month dedicated to online learning of whatever they want instead of just the mandatory learnings? Like, what are you doing at your organization to foster a culture of learning to see that adoption uptick? If you've got some great ideas that you're doing at your org, we'd love to know them because we'd love to share them with others. So drop them in the chat if you're doing something really cool to foster a culture of learning. Are you giving away prizes? Are you having so many hours a week of learning? What are you doing to foster this love of learning, this culture of learning?
All right, awesome. Here's your next question. This is from Paul, who wanted to know, how does Go1 integrate with my LMS?
Yeah, so it depends on your LMS, right? Some of them we have that native integration built out with, where you have your IT person spend 5 minutes dropping in some API information into our integration page, and then you open up your LMS and bada bing, bada boom, all your course content is there, and then you can pull it in and assign it however you like, or add it to your course catalog. A lot of our customers who are maybe using an LMS that we don't have integration built with will use that mass export of the SCORM files, which is really nifty, right? It's not a million little files, it's just one big file that most LMSs have a bulk import function. If you don't have a bulk import function, you can also bring courses in one at a time. It's really up to you and how your LMS works.
Great, thanks, Jake. Let's see, here is a question from Mike, who wanted to know, what are some of the main reasons that clients partner with Go1?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think there's a few, right? So I think one, breadth and depth of content. I think a lot of folks might come to us with, say, an HR compliance need, and then they say, oh, wow, there's this really fantastic management content, leadership content, customer service, and then, oh, wow, I can support my IT folks with all this technical content. So I think, breadth and depth is really number one. I think number two is the providers that we work with. Most are industry recognized experts and names. And so when folks realize that they can get a piece of Skillsoft and a piece of IntelliZ and a little bit of Blinkist and all these different really great providers all under one umbrella, that's really appealing. And then I'd also say sort of cost, right? So I think when you do your learning audit and you add up what you're spending on various providers for various functions within the org, you'll find, wow, I can get all of this for everybody for far less than I'm paying all these other providers. So, breadth and depth, name providers that are content partners that are amazing, and then price are three. And then I think number four, but not to be neglected, is sort of the customer service arm of Go1. I think we are not to be outdone when it comes to our support. So after a contract is signed, we don't just say, hey, good luck. I hope you guys love the platform. We're there to help curate content. We're there to help share best practices with how to deploy content and how to get your ROI up, how to get usage and adoption to where you want it to be. So we're really a learning partner in that area rather than just a vendor. So I think that's something that's super important to think about.
Yeah, I think that proactive component is another big piece of why people come over, right? Like, we find that so many of our customers have almost been mistreated by their current providers or their current partners where they're getting content. So something like COVID happens and they go to their provider and say, hey, we need a COVID course. And the provider says, oh, well, that'll be an additional blah, 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 right? Pay the money and then we'll give you the course. Where at Go1, like as soon as we have it, it's yours to use for no additional cost. And so I think that proactive response to sourcing content and being able to get what you need exactly when you need it is a huge driver for people coming over. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Erin and Jake. Here's a question from Steve who wanted to know, how can I see training that everyone in my organization was assigned?
Yeah, so we have a couple of ways to do that. As an administrator, you can create groups of employees that you can assign content to kind of automagically. You can make those groups public or private so that other people can see. Maybe if you leave them public and somebody in your IT department wants to see what people in the operations department are learning, they can go to that group and kind of see what's been assigned there. And then just reporting, right? So our reports are really robust. And you can run reports on what people are learning, what maybe people have been assigned but haven't started yet. You can put due dates on courses, and so you can run reports on whether or not people are overdue or past due, or maybe it's due in a couple days and they haven't started yet, so you got to remind them to cram for it. Our reports are pretty robust in that way.
Great, thanks, Jake. Let's see, here's a question from Britt who wants to know what providers you're using in the US and globally.
Yeah, so here in the US, I think we have right around 125 providers. And we've touched on some of them, the big names like Skillsoft and Intelezi and Treliant, Will Interactive. And then we have some providers that are really niche and very specific to different industries, like UL Pure Safety and Marcom, really speak to the construction world, or forklift safety if that's something you need. Erin, do you want to kind of talk a little bit more about all of the providers that are there?
Yeah, so there's well over 100, so we won't go through the list of them today. But you can go to go1.com and navigate to our Content Hub area, and you can filter by your region. So whether you're in the US, APAC, UK, whatever, you can filter by that. And then you'll be presented with a list of content providers. And we can chat the link to that in the chat.
Yeah, and I know I'm kind of like beating a dead horse here, but this comes up so often on our calls. All of it's included for one price, right? There's no additional cost for additional content. Everything's included in one price. There's no, oh, I'd like this, how much extra is it? No, it's all included. Everything's there. So you might not need forklift safety, but it's there if you need it. Everything's there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jake. Well, go ahead.
No, I was just saying we're getting close on time. Any last questions?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I've got one more question here. If anybody else has other questions, now's your chance. Last call, pop open the Q&A panel, ask those there. This one says, would I have to create a playlist from scratch, or would someone from your company help me do this for my organization?
Yeah, so I deal with this a lot. We've got over 200 playlists pre-created that you can easily grab and go. Or what a lot of my customers do is they'll say, hey, Jake, I really need courses about A, B, and C. And so I'll take, their topics and their keywords that they're looking for, and we've got a bigger curation team that I'll go back to and say, hey, this is my customer. They work in this industry, and they need content on these keywords. And then our curation team will put together a whole list of suggestions and ideas. And then I can go back to my L&D people with my customer and say, hey, here's 3 different ideas of what we might recommend for this topic. Like, let's take a look at these and see which one best fits your organizational needs. Or maybe they want all 3 courses and want to give people the choice. But we definitely help build those playlists out. We're here for you.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we are through all of our questions for today. So thanks to you both for sharing this content and answering all of our questions.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for having us. We look forward to hearing from you.
All right, well, just in closing, I would like to invite you all to join us for some upcoming training industry webinars. You can find out what's next, register for an event, or watch past webinars now at trainingindustry.com. And as a reminder, all of our webinars are pre-qualified for a credit hour by SHRM, HRCI, ISPI, and CPTM. CPTM is a certified professional and training management program, and the only credential focused specifically on the role of the training manager. As a CPTM, you'll gain the skills needed to manage corporate training programs that align with your company's goals, allowing you to demonstrate your expertise in training management and impact change across the business. You can find out more at trainingindustry.com/CPTM. And I hope you'll consider joining us for our next Training Industry Leaders Talk happening tomorrow. It's all about creating agile content for your learning programs. Registration is free and open now at trainingindustry.com/webinar. And once again, thanks so much to Jake and Erin for being with us today. Of course, our sponsor, Go1. Thanks to all of you for your time and attention. Until next time, I'm Elizabeth Parker. I hope you all have a wonderful day.